Hi, so I'm talking about ways to teach kata such that it keeps it interesting for the students and also reminds the students of the different facets of kata that they need to concentrate on. So in the last section we talked about the basic introductory ideas of learning the pattern, using competitiveness to help students be motivated to remember, which is kind of a bit of a reward. Or you could also in that instance offer rewards such as the highest position in the class if they practice on their own in the week or something like that. In this section we're going to talk about some slightly more advanced techniques, some principles I guess. The first of these is flow. Now flow, we finished the last section by talking about transitions, and transitions is how you move from one finishing position to another finishing position, and flow is how smooth and relaxed you are getting there. Now it's well known that when you are relaxed you can move quicker, because you don't have to first release the brakes of your tense muscles before you can explode into the new position that you need to be in. But there's also a sense of smoothness. For example, let's take a get and bry. If I come to the shoulder and down like that, that's a very rigid way of thinking of a down block, Whereas if I circle the hand round, that's much more flowing, and it more smoothly transits from one position to another, because we don't want to be jerky. We want to be flowing all the time in motion when we're in combat. We don't want to be coming to these jerky stops. We want to be flowing completely from one defense to one offense, from one offense to another offense, and continuous until the other person is defeated. Now, one good way to develop flow, a really good exercise, is to get your students to perform their katas, but never to stop between the moves. So you don't count for them, you just start them off, and then once they go, they're just one move, two moves, three moves, four moves, and that they never come to a complete absolute stop, which will feel very alien to them. And the people who are usually worse at this is middle-aged men and above, because men are used to being very uptight and got to be big and brave and straight back. It's kind of a macho dominance thing, I guess, and it's very hard to lose that tension. Now, another good thing to add with the flow, so you might get them to go through trying to be flowing, and you'll usually find that some of them will have trouble. The kids won't really get it, but the kind of the older teens and the adults will get it, even if they can't do it. And then another way to reinforce this, and it's a separate lesson, and you could get them to just go through concentrating on this one thing, but it adjuncts really well to the flow part of the lesson, is breathing. Now, obviously, timing your breathing with your techniques enables you to manage your muscle contraction so that your techniques are maximally effective. So, for example, if you punch, at the moment that you punch, you want your core to be reasonably tense at the moment that you impact, but you want your body to be relaxed for the rest of the time. So if you have a time through where you say to your students, for example, breathe in as you prepare, breathe out as you deliver your technique, be it a block or a strike or whatever, that's a good basic way of doing it, and that also leads on to the concept of relax, tense, relax. Now, as I mentioned just now, you need to be relaxed to deliver the maximally fast techniques. Mass times acceleration equals power, and acceleration is maximally achieved by being relaxed. So if you use the idea of relax, tense, relax, so what you could do, for example, and this works really well with first kata, and then for your higher students, once they've done that, they might apply it to their own grade kata, is that you just say, okay, so relax as you prepare, hands kind of loose if you like, and then shoot the technique down, and then at the moment that you hit, tense everything up for a second, and you might even exaggerate that a little tiny bit, just tense for half a second and then relax. Now, most people will have no problem with the relax here. Most people will have no problem being relaxed to throw the technique out quickly, but they will have trouble with the relaxation after the tension, because obviously you tense as you hit, and that's fairly fairly intuitive, I guess. Punch and you clench your fist at the moment that you hit, so that your fist becomes rock-like, or it becomes a devastating solid weapon. But then the idea of relaxing again straight away afterwards will be alien to people. So you may need to go through several times before they can get that. And as I say, that again will adjunct to the previous lesson, which is about breathing. So here you could have a little bit of a grouping where you sequence a few lessons one after the other. Don't give them all to your students at the same time, because it would be too much. They'll be overwhelmed. Use your stacking to build up towards an end product. In this case, relaxation during your kata. So as you're relaxing, as I say, you can use your exhalation. Now, you don't want to breathe every single bit of air out of your lungs. You want to breathe, say, just an arbitrary number pulled out of the air here, but say 70% of the air, the majority of the air from your lungs, but not all of it. Because if you're fully exhaled, then your lungs have compressed too much to do that, and that actually takes muscular effort to hold that much air out of your lungs, and then you become vulnerable again. On the other hand, if you're completely soft and your stomach, you don't exhale at all, your stomach is too soft and you're vulnerable again. And also exhalation and muscle contraction serves to provide a rigid structure for everything, not just your stomach, but your arm, your shoulder, your core, your stance, everything should all contract. Generally speaking, should all contract at the moment of impact, or at the moment of a block or whatever you're doing, in order to have maximum transmission of stability from the ground, and also of power through whatever technique you're delivering. Okay, so another technique is another thing that you may wish to focus on, I guess, which follows on again from that relax, tense, relax, is the idea of timing. Now, you may find it very natural, but most people don't find it natural to time their techniques with their stances, or to time their techniques with their muscle contraction, or to time their techniques with each other, for example. So, for example, in Basso Dai, where you're throwing one hand out and the other one comes back, quite often what you'll see is one hand goes out and the other one hasn't retracted properly. The Hikite hand doesn't retract properly at the moment that you're punching, so you'll end up in this position where one hand's fully punching and the other one's not. Or, for example, when you're twisting your hand, a lot of people will twist their hand too early, and then see how that promotes elbow flaring there. So having proper timing on the techniques, and then for example in kata, where you're stepping and punching, there's no point fully landing, especially with an oizuki or junzuki in some styles, or gazamazuki even, where you're doing a front hand punch, a lunge, or a jab, or whatever. There's no point fully landing your stance, directing all of your momentum down into the ground, and then punching with just your arm. You want to hit the target as your forward momentum is continuing. So that can be challenging as well, and even more so when you're doing a reverse punch gyakuzuki. And then last of all is focus. Now, focus can take on two characteristics. Focus can be your ability to remain tightly focused regardless of distraction. So one way to test this is to get your students up doing their kata, and to have a couple of distractors around them, and the distractors shout and they wave hands in their face. So they don't touch them, but they're just around them, being a peripheral distraction. Or another way to test focus, for example, the idea of concentration, that being the type of focus, is to align your students off to a different angle. So for example, a lot of students depend on their angles by where they start. So they'll usually start square to the front of the dojo, and so if they're moving at 45 degrees, they have references, especially if you have tiles on the floor, and they depend on that very much to align themselves. And a really good way to unsettle students is to just point them off at a bizarre angle. 45 degrees is kind, but 22 degrees or 17 degrees or something, and see if they can still align their sense of orientation without the references, which shouldn't be necessary. They're a teaching tool, but they shouldn't need those references. An even more advanced way is to position lots of people all around so they're all performing their kata in different directions. And of course there are games you can do, for example in first kata, where you have all 4 people start shoulder to shoulder but in an outward facing cross pattern, and then they all perform their kata, and if they all perform perfectly where their stance is consistent and their angles consistent, they'll all cross in and out of each other, eventually ending up where they started from, more or less. And it's a really great test of the consistency of their stances, their focus when they're distracted by others, their ability to remain oriented relative to their start position rather than to some arbitrary, showman in the dojo. Showman means front, by the way. Then an even more advanced way would be to get them to perform their katas with their eyes shut. And this tests also their ability to balance out. They'll discover quickly that, especially any katas that have kicks in, that their balance quickly goes out the window once their eyes are shut. And again, it tests the consistency of their stances and their ability to remain oriented, and their proprioception, which is their ability to feel where their body's going. So when your eyes are shut, you depend completely on your innate feel as you orient your body. You don't depend on reference points around the dojo to orient yourself, and that's quite a good exercise, and students will enjoy it as well. And then the other aspect of focus is simply the ability to focus on the imagined enemy. So my focus here, very, very tightly focused on the camera here now, and I'm imagining that the camera is my enemy. Now, if I was doing kata performance in a tournament, my focus would be just above the judge's head, because you can quickly distract yourself by looking into their eyes, and it can also come across intimidating. But generally speaking, my focus is my eye level straight ahead. There may be exceptions where your technique, for example, the finishing move in Seppai, where you look down before you do a hammer strike to the head, that could be an example where your focus is not straight ahead. But it's very, very common for students to kind of look down at the floor at nothing particularly, and we really need to get them out of that habit and get them focused. So they're just some intermediate ideas, guys. I'm going to continue in a minute with the some advanced ideas and also some competition thoughts. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please take the time to rate and comment, and it would mean a lot to me if you would subscribe. Thank you.